Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I'm Dr. Swati Biswas from the Department of Islamic History and Culture, University of Calcutta. Today we are going to discuss from the paper Indian Polity, the module Maratha Administration. We have to understand that the Marathas came into the scenario when the Mughals were at the helm of things in North India. The traditional rivalry between the North Indian rulers and the South Indian rulers was taken advantage by the Maratha group. The Marathas spoke the same language, shared the same sentiment, have a craving for political aspiration, and had imbibed a kind of a nationalism which was very unique to them and to this part of history. So we have to understand that Shivaji, the first leader of the Maratha clan, actually was a concept of dream that he had, and through this dream he constituted the Marathwada, and not only a rebel's dream, a dream which then could encompass the whole of the Marathi speaking people. Now, in this module, we are going to therefore study the background of the Maratha identity, the scope of administration that this political setup had, Shivaji's initiative in administration, his military and revenue administration, and the administrative post that Shivaji created. Now, we also have to understand that the Marathas have a background in controlling the area as an administrative officials. The rise of the Maratha is a kind of a medieval phenomena from the 8th century, like the Rajputs. The administration of Shivaji and the concept of Swarajya that he established was a blow to the concept of Mughal imperialism. As we have discussed, this concept of Swarajya was a dream that Shivaji first dreamt, and then along with him his people dreamt. They spoke the same language, had the same ideology, and had the same kind of nationalistic spirit that would incorporate not only the Marathis of that area, but also the other people who lived in that region. A concept of regional rule and administration among the Marathas in the region of Marathwada was always there. They always looked for an opportunity to grab an independent space for themselves. The all-encompassing Mughal Empire subjugated the regional powers, including the Marathas. The exceptional part of the Marathas was that they did not give up. They were always there to look for an opportunity whenever they could see the weakness of the central power. They would crave an area or a niche area of political space for themselves. The concept of well-established state was, though not established, as the Rajputs. Rajputs were larger in number and the clans were more in number and cohesive, but the Marathas clan did not have that cohesiveness among themselves. So that was a basic difference between the Maratha clans and the Rajputs. So it was difficult for Shivaji, even in the initial years, to control all the Maratha clans for that matter. There was a clear infiltration again of the Brahmanization and Kshatriyization, and through the matrimonial alliances and the land grant, these institutions could be controlled. So apparently this may seem as an anti-Muslim sentiment, but it was actually a kind of a different spirit within the Hindu community that was being infiltrated in the society or within the Marathi society at this point of time. The administration reflected this aspect very well. The Marathas acted as local chiefs and at times potential allies with the following of the loose auxiliaries terms as Borghese. Now, this is a term which remained very, very important till the end of the Maratha rule. They served the Bahmanis as well as the Mughals in different contexts. And their successes has a position to improve as the Mughals attacked the Bahmani kingdom. So they always looked for an opportunity within the squabble of the Bahmanis and the Mughals. The Marathas, to understand the Maratha ideology, we also have to look into the family background of Shivaji and his clan. The rise of the Marathas and the establishment of the independent Maratha state was essentially linked to Shivaji and his successors. Shivaji's ancestor Babaji was a Patel or a headman in the villages of Hingani Beradi and Devalgaon in the Pune district. So they held from the Pune district from the very start. His son Maloji and Vithoji were petty horsemen in Daulatabad. Maloji rose in service during Malikambar and granted the Parganas of Sholapur and Pune to his son Shahji. Shahji later moved from the support of the Ahmednagar and moved to the Mughal post in 1630 and granted a 5,000 Zat, 5,000 Sawar Mansabdar. So, in reality, what happened was they were quite acquainted to the Mughal practice of administration as well as the Adil Shahi and the Bahmani administration at one go. So this was something that was very special to the Marathas, that they administered both the systems. So they could incorporate in their system both of the administrative units. Now, Pune was given as a Jagir during Shah Jahan's period to the family of Shivaji. This did not last long, of course, and the Shahji moved to the service of Bijapur in 1632. So from the very start we understand that Shivaji's family had this tendency of moving either to the side of the Mughals or to the side of the Bijapuris. The disbanded Nizam Shahi troops joined Shahji, and the disintegration of the Nizam Shahi troop actually was an advantage for Shahji. He harassed the Mughals with this contingent and controlled a large part of the Ahmednagar state. This is the background from where Shivaji began to rise. Shahji left Pune to his estranged wife Jijabai and his son Shivaji, who was about very young at that point of time. His political mettle was in controlling the Puna's near Pune, the forts of Rajgarh, Kuntana and Torna in 1645-47. So this is from where the administrative skill of Shahji began, from the control of the port. After his death, Dadaji Kondadev in 1647, Shivaji became his own master and controlled the Pune Jagir from his own asset. Neither Mughals nor the Bijapur state was interested in Pune after the Treaty of 1636. In 1649, Shahji was imprisoned, and this was the time when Shivaji first confronted the Mughals. In 1657, after the conquest of Bijapur state by the Mughals, Shivaji entered into the negotiation with the Mughals. So this balancing act of negotiation either with the Bijapuris or the Mughals had to be done from the very beginning, and along with it, the areas that he would control would be administered in a loose manner, because administration would then lead to tax collection. He switched sides soon and then made deep inroads into the Mughal region, collecting booty. So collecting booty was the mainstay of the tax system of Shivaji, which was not very uniform or regular. Aurangzeb pardoned him due to the civil war that he had to face. So Shivaji was outright ambitious and even went into interaction with the Mughals when his father was imprisoned. So he was a kind of a rebel leader who acted individually in his own capacity. As a reward, he was given 5,000 mansabdari by Prince Murad and a Deshmukhi of Junar and Ahmednagar, two very important areas. It was a kind of a negotiation, but it was not finalized. But as it was given to him, he started controlling it. During the time of Aurangzeb, Shivaji also demanded the territories under his control from the Bijapur state and asked for the forts of Konkan, which Aurangzeb of course refused. The Mughals in the Bijapur state was much concerned about the rise of Shivaji and his control of the region of North Konkan with the conquest of Kalyan and Bhiwandi. Konkan was the outlet of export and also the key to the import of horses, which again the Portuguese were trying to control. So therefore it is this time that actually Shivaji went into an antagonistic relation with the Mughals, with the Bijapuris and the Portuguese merchants. Shaista Khan, on the behest of Aurangzeb, Shivaji's control over Pune was taken away along with parts of Konkan. Shivaji went to an agreement with the Bijapur state and turned to the Mughals. Shaista Khan was treacherously rooted in Pune and the Mughal emperor removed Shaista Khan to Bengal in anger. Shivaji was also successful in looting the premier Mughal port of Surat in 1664. This loot actually gave an edge to Shivaji on an economic basis. Mirza Raja Jai Singh was made the Viceroy of Deccan after that, and after removal of Prince Muazzam was given a huge authority and 12,000 horses to give a kind of a boost and tackle Shivaji. Diler Khan, a confidant of Aurangzeb, was placed under him. He was successfully able to control and maintain the fort of Purandar, and Shivaji had no other option to sign the treaty. Shivaji had to seize a number of forts, had to go to the service of the Mughals through his minor son, who was kept in the guardianship of the Mughals and served as the 5,000 Mansabdar. The complexity of the Mughals and the Bijapur and Shivaji continued for a very long time. Now we have to concentrate as to how Shivaji became the king. The final bridge with Shivaji and the Mughals actually can be treated as the trump card for Shivaji's access to power. In order to consolidate his position after his return from Agra, Shivaji had asked for the emperor's pardon and entered into a treaty with him. Shambhaji, his son, was resorted to the mansab of 5,000 again and awarded the Jagir of Berar. He sent a contingent to serve the Mughal viceroy at Aurangabad. Aurangzeb, interestingly, attached Berar Jagir to pay for a sum of rupees 1 lakh advance to Shivaji for his journey to Agra. And actually Shivaji was looking for an excuse like this, and he took the opportunity. Shivaji launched a vigorous offensive in 1670 and recovered many hill forts, including the famous Kondana fort, which he lost in the Treaty of Purandar in 1665. Now this was a kind of a prestige win for Shivaji. He attacked Surat again and recovered the fort of Purandar. He also made inroads into the Mughal territories of Khandesh and Berar. The Mughals, of course, then were busy with the Afghans in the northwest and therefore did not pay much heed to what was going on in Shivaji's front. He also renewed his conquest with Bijapur, securing Panhala and Satara by means of bribes and raiding the Kanara country at leisure. So this was a tactic that Shivaji applied from the very beginning, a kind of a tactic of looking for opportunities either by means of two squabbling partners or giving bribes. In 1674, Shivaji finally crowned himself at Rajgarh as the king of the Marathas. After a petty Jagirdar of Pune, he traversed all the way to become an independent ruler between the two mighty rulers of Bijapur and the Mughals. He was not equal to any Maratha chief, therefore, and by the stature of his contingent could be equated to any Dakkani sultans. The chief priest Gaga Bhatta declared that Shivaji was the high caste Kshatriya, and that means by his achievement, and was therefore a further step towards Maratha nationalism. So the Kshatriyization was another feature of this Maratha rise. Now let us move to his administration after he became the king. Now it is very interesting that Shivaji died in 1680, but before his death, he laid the foundation of a very sound administrative system for a short period of time, which became a kind of a role model for his successors and even the Peshwas of Pune. The system of administration was very close to what there was in the practice of the Deccani state, and he tried to imitate or imbibe certain regulations of Malik Ambar, to which he was of course conversant with. Shivaji designated 8 ministers known as Ashtapradhan, but this Ashtapradhan was not a council of ministers. They were held individual responsibilities and they were answerable only to Shivaji. So there was not any cohesive strength among the ministries. The ministries functioned singularly at the behest of the center, which was controlled by Shivaji. Now, the most important minister was the Peshwa or the Prime Minister. He generally looked after the general finance and the administration. Like the Mughals, this department was very important because this is where the tax collection would be registered and disbursement would also take place. The second minister was the Senapati or Sar-e-Naubat, who was the commander-in-chief of the army. This was a kind of a post of honor, as one of the leading Maratha chiefs would be given this post. In reality, the helm of the army was always controlled by Shivaji himself. The accountant was called Mazumdar. Waqia Navis was a post who would control the household affairs and also the intelligence department and worked in collaboration with Shivaji himself. The Chitnis or the Suranavis helped the ruler with his correspondence. The Dabir was the master of ceremonies and helped the king with foreign affairs. The Nyadhish was responsible for judiciary, and the Pandit Rao was responsible for granting charitable grants. But we have to understand that all these responsibilities could only be shelved with the nod of the ruler himself. Shivaji is to be credited for the organization of the army and the revenue system too. Shivaji preferred to give cash salaries to his soldiers. Of course, sometimes revenue grants were given, which is known as Saranjam in the Swarajya, that is the area controlled by the center itself. Now let's move to the military administration. We have to understand Shivaji won up to this level through his military. So military was one thing that he could organize well and had to organize in all respect. The army was maintained in strict discipline. The Maratha discipline of army became the code of the day. Even the other armies, especially the Mughals and the Bijapuri armies' administration, sometimes referred to the discipline of the Maratha army. The plunder of each soldier had to be accounted for. Now we understand that there was no regular income of the state. The center depended on its army for this income, and the regular visit or regular attack to the foreign lands or the enemy lands fetched a lot of money. But this money was accountable. Each soldier was accountable to the center, and otherwise it was punishable offense. The regular army or the Paga consisted about 30,000 to 40,000 cavalry. The cavalry was supervised by one Havaldar who had a fixed salary and a high salary. Apart from the fixed cavalrymen, there were loose auxiliaries known as Silhadars who could be called at any time. The number of auxiliaries varied according to the need and expectations of the plunder. The infantry was possibly over 1,00,000. This is very interesting part of the Maratha administration of the military. The figure does not indicate how many of them fought. He surely had guns mounted on the forts. The strength of the field artillery is not known. Moreover, the Poona region was not very popular for metallurgy, so the account of it is not given very clearly. The forts were the major source of strength of Shivaji, and he skillfully supervised them. Shivaji rose to power through control of the popular and strategic forts of the area. The Mawali foot soldiers, who were kind of a pride of the Maratha army, and gunners were always posted there. 3 men of equal rank was posted to guard the forts against the treachery. So there was a kind of a balancing act that would always go on in the forts. It is interesting to note that Shivaji had a naval force because he was very close to the ports, and he understood that the control of the ports is very important, and he had to combat even the Europeans who had a better prospect because they had good naval force. So Shivaji was among the few rulers of India who developed a navy. He controlled the ports of Kalyan, Bhiwandi and Panvel in North Konkan and brought him close to the Portuguese who were in possession of Goa. The navy was also needed for the defense of the court of the areas from the Siddhis of Janjira who dominated the island of Janjira and its adjacent areas. Now, this was a place which was regularly looted by Shivaji. Shivaji recruited the local traditional seafarers in boat making, such as the Kolis and the Bhandaris sailors. Plenty of available woods kept Shivaji in an advantageous position. With the high quality of timber, he had built about 60 to 160 gunboats called the Ghurabs. The Ghurabs were the lightweight boats which were adequately armed, but of course it was not in any position to compete the Portuguese ships. It was used within the territory in the waterways. Miscellaneous variety of ships named as shipbars and manchavas were also built by Shivaji. These ships were used, of course, for trading. Mostly, he used the ships to tackle the Siddhis of Janjira, who would at times join hands with the Mughals to harass Shivaji. He himself used these ships to plunder the pilgrim moving from Surat to Makkah. His ship was there used for trade in Mocha too. He also recruited Muslims, including the infamous Malabar pirates. So we have to understand that this tagging of the Maratha uprising to a Hindu uprising perhaps is not true. It is a regional phenomena which took advantage of the weakness of the big powers, and they used everyone in this mission, including the Muslims and the infamous Muslim pirates from Malabar. The borderline between piracy, plunder, trade and naval attack therefore was very thin. For Shivaji, it was all convenience of control, and he used anyone who could ally with him against his contenders, both of the Mughals and the Bijapur state, or for that matter, even the local chiefs. So by default, the rulers of Bijapur and Mughals were Muslims. But of course, the Maratha chiefs who were Hindus were also attacked by Shivaji at times if they did not ally with him or refused to ally with him. For sailors, Shivaji recruited the local traditional seafarers, Kolis and Bhandaris. The recruited Muslim pirates were again a kind of balance between the trading acts and the Marathi political structure. Now let's move to the land revenue administration. Now Shivaji's land revenue system was grossly borrowed from Malik Ambar. An attempt was made to measure the land. In the process, he wanted to do away with the Deshmukhs and the Zamindars of the area and build a direct relationship with the peasants. The weakness of the Bijapur state made the Deshmukhs very powerful as local leaders. Over and above, the local rulers were tied to the people due to the caste inclination, which invariably put them in an advantageous position. So what Shivaji wanted to do is, wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of this caste system and control the whole peasant income from the center. But of course, it was difficult for him to establish. Shivaji prohibited the illegal extraction of the mirazdars or the middlemen. Ijara or revenue farming was also stopped. He fixed the income of the zamindars in cash or in kind. The rights and prerequisites of the Deshmukhs and the Desh Kulkarni and the Patil and the Kulkarni in the districts and Pargana levels were also fixed. He faced great resistance from this group, but in spite of it, he was successful to some extent. The system should have given some respite to common man, but it is difficult to ascertain the claim as itself the claim was very high. Shivaji by all means did not bring about a total change. All he could do was to reform the existing system. He understood that creation of a new system would jeopardize the peace and would create a chaotic situation for the common man and which could have been retaliated. It is believed that after the Deshmukhs were controlled in 1679, the land was assessed by Diwan. Based on the measurement, land revenue was also fixed. They went out of their way to help in this measurement. The system thus was able to establish a relationship between the central power in the village, and thus would therefore middle tier could be controlled if not ignored. It is interesting to note that Shivaji wanted to do away with the zamindari system as well as the jagirdari system of the Mughals. The Mukasa or Jagir created problem for not only the state but also the Rayat or the cultivators or the landholders. So he stopped granting the Mukasa system. He had to retreat from his position, of course, after the defeat of Afzal Khan. Many leaders had to be rewarded with the grant of villages as Mukasa. Mukasa Mahals were also set apart for goddesses like Tulja Bhavani, the patron goddess of Shivaji. But this was a common practice in Deccan where land is reserved or land is kept apart for the religious orders. Shantaji, the natural son of Shahji, was given a Mukasa Mahal. So this kind of arrangement within the family was also permissible. So granting Mukasa was convenient at times, but the state did not favor the grant of Mukasa as that posed threat to the state itself. Shivaji vehemently opposed the grant of Mukasa Mahal Darobast, which was the larger control of the land. It was a kind of an inam or a grant in entirety. This essentially was a Mughal system, and had to be dealt with very harsh. The records are so scanty at times and scattered that it is difficult to get an idea about the actual land revenue demand during the time of Shivaji. Sources said that the state demanded about 2/5 of the produce in grain. Added to this were a number of cesses which again increased from over a time and mentioned categorically in the record of the Peshwa in the next century. But of course, we have to understand the demand was definitely heavy. In spite of this high demand, the cultivators must have appreciated the state for curbing the power of the Mirazdars, who were the middlemen who would incorporate a lot of cess for themselves on the peasants. The internal law and order also improved. Facilities were provided for restoration and expansion of cultivation within Shivaji's Swarajya. Shivaji supplemented his income by levying a contribution on the neighboring Mughal territories. This contribution came to 1/4 of the land revenue. Now, this was called the famous Chauth. This was not new in the region, of course, but this was used frequently by Shivaji. The means was so popular that even the Portuguese in Diu gave the right of Chauth to the Raja of Ramnagar in return for not raiding the area. The Mughals also paid 1/4 of the revenue of Porbandar on the Kathiawar coast to its zamindars. Similar rights may have been held by the zamindars of the Konkan. Shivaji used this means of Chauth to claim zamindari rights over the entire Deccan. In practice, it became a kind of protection money against the Maratha depredations. There was another claim very close to the nature of Chauth, and that was Sardeshmukhi. This was a claim of 1/10 of the revenue. The reason for the collection of this was that the notion that Shivaji was the head of the Deshmukhs of the area. So Sardeshmukhi actually proved his claim over the Deshmukhs. This claim was also made by the ruler of Bijapur. So it was not something new that Shivaji incorporated in his system. The ruler also even claimed Sar Pateli from the noble family, as if he was the head of the Patels. Shivaji's claim was definitely linked to the fact that he considered himself superior to all the Deshmukhs. After his coronation, he had put an impost called Singha Sanapati over all the Deshmukhs. Now, these measures were taken to control the Deshmukhs who would otherwise rebel. Shivaji's Swarajya was an independent claim over the land he controlled, was by no mean achievement at a time when the mighty Mughals and the rulers of Bijapur were both there to crush him. His indomitable spirit and his astute political intelligence was his sole achievement. He could become possible because he knew exactly the way to control over the widening local rulers who lacked any vision. The initial resistance from them was controlled, and he could establish himself as their leader. His military excellence, his diplomatic skill, and personal perseverance led to the foundation of an independent state. His mobile army was his trump card. The salary of the army was not enough and thus had to depend on plunder. The state, in spite of this, cannot be called a war state, as the pre-modern world did sanction plunder as a means of income. The proportion varied from case to case. So thus, we summarize as to what we have discussed in this module. The concept of Swarajya was a severe blow to the imperialists in Delhi, that is the Mughals. The concept of Swarajya was the backbone of the Maratha nationalism. Shivaji was able to give an organized administration as far as he could in the troubled times. The economy was though weak and dependent on irregular income. Shivaji inducted many Muslims and Afghan soldiers and leaders. Though it had a regional and popular base, the state cannot solely therefore be called Hindu. The Shivaji can be called a popular king who represented the assertion of the popular will in the area against the Mughal centralized power. Thus, he represented the sentiments of the Marathwada region in its true spirit. Thank you for your patience listening, and for further information, do refer to the e-text given along in the module. Thank you.